Welcome to Needlessly Complicated Chaos. Welcome back, everyone, to the Needlessly Complicated Chaos podcast, the podcast that is exactly what it says on the tin, a little bit complicated, a lot of bit chaos. I am one of your three hosts, Ace. My pronouns are he, him, and I am joined, as always, by...
My name is Lynn, everyone. My pronouns are she, her.
And my name is SKYE. My pronouns are she, they.
So, today we are talking about anime. Uh, as big old weebs, this is a topic and a half for us. So, I feel like we should get started talking about why anime means so much to us as little nerdlings. So, who wants to start us off?
Why don't you start today?
Oh, plot twist. It's me this time.
You activated my trap card.
Speaking of Yu-Gi-Oh! Oh my god. Okay, I am a huge Yu-Gi-Oh! Nerd. I'd turn my camera, but that would fuck everything up. But I have a giant dual disc on my wall here. I will pop up a flash screen here in post. Little editing note for myself. And if you guys want to see the shit that we pop up, or our lovely mugs as we speak, check out the video version over on YouTube. But yes, I have a dual disc and I'm a big old nerd. I played Yu-Gi-Oh! In high school. I mean, I still play it now. Let's be realistic. But that was actually one of the ways that anime is big in my life. I was one of those kids who would watch TV and then it would help connect the dots about weird abstract things about myself that I knew but I couldn't really articulate. So with anime, and it's overarching themes of acceptance and being your best self and friendship is magic. That shit was everything, and it still is.
Believe in yourself.
Yes,
believe
believe
that
it.
line from Naruto.
But it is a big thing for me. So one of the ways that kind of translated into my real life was through Yu-Gi-Oh! It definitely wasn't one of my first love animes, but we'll get to our favorite animes a little bit later. In high school, when I was just a wee young lad, and I was
a wee weeb.
a wee little weeb. Wow, that was the most Irish thing I've done in a hot minute. When I was a small boy, I guess I was 11, 10, 11, 11 in high school, 11. And me and my four friends would be playing, well, three friends and my little brother would be playing Yu-Gi-Oh! All the time at lunch, and it helped us gain this little circle and made the transition from grade school to high school a lot less scary, because I don't know about for y'all, but for out here, all the different grade schools in the English sector are zoned to the same high school in the English sector where we are. Because I live in the suburbs, so it's a little small here. And while there is a metric shit ton of grade schools, there's only 3 high schools. So you're going somewhere. So when you make that switch, it can be disorienting. And Yu-Gi-Oh! Was a way for us to become really close and do something in our lunch times and really forge friendships that have been long lasting friendships. One of my closest friends, Nick, who I became really close to through Yu-Gi-Oh! His sons are my nephews. He's now married to my oldest friend, and lifelong part of my world, all thanks to Yu-Gi-Oh! So that's how big a thing anime can be in my life. What about y'all? What's a anime in your life story?
That was so heartwarming. But I will concede that for me, it was also very much led to pretty good friendships getting into anime. I actually started getting into anime first by going through manga. And I actually started that because my sisters were initially into manga. They read Kenshin, Detective Conan, and I know Detective Conan, by the way, is the French name for Case Closed. That's just how they titled it in.
Wait a minute, is it not called? Oh man,
No.
Nope.
Nope.
It's not called Detective Conan. Elsewhere.
I just learned a thing today. Oh dang! What a perfect follow-up to our bilingual episodes. Shameless plug.
Yeah, so they started reading that, and I started reading their books, and then they stopped reading manga, but I continued. which then led to me watching anime. And one of the, of course, biggest animes at the time was Sailor Moon.
Oh, Sailor
And
Moon.
yeah. And my friends and I, we would pretend to be the Sailor Scouts and, do all the magical moves and stuff. And, we would discuss who was our favorite and things like that. But it started, that's where the fostering of friendship started. And as our tastes developed in anime, I made friends with other people with for specific kinds of anime. And, it started from there. It didn't lead to as lifelong as friendship as Ace has had, but it still led to very good friendships that I'm very glad I had.
That was heartwarming too. So I don't know what y'all are talking about. I thought that was hella sweet.
As for me, my anime journey started when I was about 4 years old. My sister was watching Canadian Alert, YTV.
Ooh, the OG.
And there was Sailor Moon playing, and of course, being a big old bisexual, I launched on that like it was honey for anything.
Oh god, yeah. It
that
really
was probably
is.
The queer awakening for a lot of people.
Oh my god.
Yes.
Sailor Mars, though.
Sailor Mars.
And Tuxedo Mask.
Please take a moment to appreciate Skye and Ace going off into dreamland.
I mean, come on, we're talking about chaotic goth bisexuals? Like, Sailor Moon is peak.
Fair.
You can't get more peak than that.
So yeah, I started with that, and after that I realized that I could find used book at a bookstore, and I found a lovely manga that was Fruit Baskets.
Oh, Fruit Baskets. Deep
And
shots.
then I was
today.
hooked. I decided that this was my thing, and I made it read to all my friends. They all read it. Didn't have a choice in the matter.
Yes, the true mark of friendship. I like this thing. Experience it.
It's even worse when it's a sad thing and you're like, you must experience this sad thing with me.
My experience around that tends to be, hey, this is a cursed thing. Look at it. And I'm like, oh god, why have you showed me such pain?
But like most of my friendship was based also around that, like around anime and manga and like that weeb culture, because that's how you found your group of people. And it bring back to like our old episode that we set out before, but because of when our generation was, it was way harder to get access to those stuff.
True. No Netflix back in our day.
We had to experience that week to week, wait for the next episode, and be like, I have to be in front of my TV for 9 o'clock because this is when that next episode is going to be there.
Cut to like 8-year-old me being like, I don't care, Mom, it's 9 p.m., it's Dragon Ball Z. I don't need to go to bed. I need to know if Namek is blowing up this episode or if it'll be next week.
I need to know if Goku is still running in those fucking clouds.
The planet will blow up in 2 minutes. 3 weeks later, in 1 minute. I'm like, shit, that was a long 2 minutes. Like, I'm sitting there like I'm 8. I don't know how to tell fucking time.
By the way, for any people that did not watch Dragon Ball Z yet, don't watch Dragon Ball Kai.
Oh, I disagree. For
someone that experiences an anime for the first time, you don't want like 20 episodes of Goku running in the fucking clouds.
Okay, true.
Or like Goku just screaming for a good 15 minutes of the episode, charging up his whatever.
Because it's basically it takes on the last episode 2 minutes of new content on the next episode.
I mean, I get that. I understand why people prefer Kai because it's streamlined, but I want that. I want a 20-minute bucket episode about Goku and Piccolo going to the DMV and getting their license. I don't care if that has anything to do with the plot. The plot, we don't know her. I'm here to see these idiots try and get a driver's license. That's what I'm here for.
I forgot about that.
But if there was actually that, it would be more fun. But it's 20 episodes of just nothingness of Goku running in clouds.
Okay, it's not quite that bad. I did recently rewatch Dragon Ball Z. Also, I realized both of you picked, like, your first anime thing, and I was nowhere near there, because it's also Sailor Moon. Like, for me, I was nowhere near there.
Sailor Moon.
You guys are like, oh, yeah, this shit I did when I was 5. And I'm like, yeah, I watched that when I was 5, too. And then I was like, here's a story from when I was 11. Like, I don't know why I jumped there.
Sailor Moon
This is why I don't go
Pokemon.
first.
But like Sailor Moon was that original one that was shown more than the other because
True.
it was in that time period where there was anime that was starting to go to America.
Yeah.
But in Canada, they were still like, we're not sure yet.
Yeah.
They don't look like a regular cartoon. They have big eyes. They're weird.
Where's the lie, though? Oh my god, this is gonna date the shit out of us, but, like, those early things, like, you got Sailor Moon, Dragon Ball, so pre-Dragon Ball Z, Gundam Wing,
Yeah.
and SKYE. That was the shit I
Oh,
was
yeah.
watching. Right? That's what I was watching as a little kid. Like, a little kid by, like, 5, 6. Like, a little kid. I was just like, oh
and
my
then
god, I'm invested.
right after that was like Sakura Card Captor, Pokemon, Digimon.
Monster Rancher! Oh my god.
Wasn't there an anime called Fighting Foodons at some point?
Yes! Yes! Oh my god.
Triggered Ace.
Okay,
Ace.
but like Ultimate Muscle and Fighting Foodons was my whole ass life for like a whole section of my childhood, and none of my friends watched it, so nobody wanted to listen to me rattle on about this because they're like, it's not Dragon Ball Z, I don't give a shit. And I was like, but it's really good. And like, I don't fucking care. It's a guy whose fucking name is Fried Ricer. That's stupid. I'm like, no, it's my life. I was such a weeb. I remember back in the old YTV days, it would be like get home from school, and there'd be that 4 to like 5 p.m. block. There's Pokemon, Digimon,
Friday
Monster
nights.
Rancher, Dragon Ball Z. This was before the Friday night block, and which always like threw me too, because it was like Pokemon, Digimon, Monster Rancher, Dragon Ball Z, and then I guess at some point somebody at YTV actually watched these shows and was like, why is Dragon Ball Z with the children? Move this to the people are dying. Like, that always threw me so much because like I would watch it and I'd be like, yeah, you know, watch Pokemon, little thing, Digimon, slightly more intense, Monster Rancher, even more intense, and then Dragon Ball Z. Like it's like going from G to PG to M. Like it was a huge jump.
I remember when they changed the Dragon Ball Z time slot. We were all confused.
Mm-hmm. I was like, get home, rush to get through my homework, and I'd be like, I don't care, Mom, I gotta watch Dragon Ball Z. And then, this whole episode is just me being like, I don't care, Mom. She was not stopping me from watching this at all. Just, I don't care. There was like nothing preventing me from doing this, just being needlessly dramatic. I gotta watch my show. But yeah, no, I remember when they moved Dragon Ball Z, I was so disoriented. Because they took it off and they put, I think it was, what was it? It was before Beyblade and Yu-Gi-Oh! Started. What did they put there? They put something else in that slot. Because I remember when Beyblade and Yu-Gi-Oh! Started. I remember Yu-Gi-Oh! Started the day Reboot ended. Which is a very old man Canadian sentence. But
Yes, right?
I watched the series finale of Reboot. I went and had tacos. I ate them I realized that was a very Mexican moment. I ate them so fast, and then I ran back to my room because I needed to see the premiere of the newfangled anime called Yu-Gi-Oh! So, I know this wasn't at the same time. I wasn't aware this episode was going to make me feel old as shit.
Well, it's childhood anime episode.
We're
What did you
starting
think?
with childhood anime. That's going
my
to
God.
date us.
Yeah.
We've watched more anime later on.
Oh yeah, for sure.
Don't worry, people.
But like,
Did
it's...
we? That's all we have.
That's all we have. This is all I have. It's wild to me, now that we're talking about it, exactly how many things we watched as kids actually were anime. Like, so many of the big shows that, like, shaped my childhood. It wasn't until I was older, and then I was like, oh my god, these are all anime. Like, Yu-Gi-Oh!, Digimon, Dragon Ball Z, Monster Rancher, Metabots, Beyblade.
Because there weren't...
Oh my god, Metabots! You just threw me back in time.
There's a Metabot on my door. You didn't notice that?
No.
There is. I will send you a picture later.
Beyblade. Oh my god, Beyblade.
Yep, Beyblade. Oh my god. It's crazy how being a kid in the Western market, you grow up and you're just like, I just watched a bunch of cartoons when I was a kid. I don't know why we're 1940s page boys, but we watched a bunch of cartoons as kids. And then, like, you actually think about it now as an adult, and you have a better working understanding of anime, and you're like, oh my god, I was a weeb from birth! Like,
but even our parents' generation, they have their weeb stuff. They just don't know that it's weeb stuff.
that's true. Like, Sailor Moon is technically a smidge older than all of us by the time we're talking about being sentient enough to watch it at 4 or 5. It was already near the end. Same with Dragon Ball and Gundam as well.
There was also like Mini-Fay in French. I don't know what it is in English. I'm sorry, guys.
Yeah, no. What are these in English? Oh, well. This is exactly what we were talking about last time. Bilingualism, which is literally just goodbye language in both languages, because I can no longer remember what that word is.
Bilingualism.
Yep. So, circling to a more any remotely at all sensical kind of through thread here, what are some of the animes that you find have been deeply meaningful to you, or are some all-time faves?
I mean, we talked about the Sailor Moon thing in depth, so we're just gonna skip that one.
Yeah.
But for me, like, a lot of Sakura Card Captor shaped a lot of who I am today, just because of that representation that they had in it that is more LGBTQIA open. Like, they don't come out and say it in the TV series.
No, they never do.
But it's heavily implied, at least, and they don't shy away from it. They don't like, no. If I click, I'm going to make those two kiss forcibly so you can shut up.
It is literally that, though. I was never a huge fan of Card Captors. I thought the premise was cool, but something about it just never really gripped me. But I do remember that there was that, like, the one thing that I remember about it, besides the Book of Cloud.
The Book of Cloud.
Yes.
There we go. That's the thing. That's it. The thing I remember besides that thing, because I thought that was neat, the other thing I remember was this one girl who was definitely in love with the main chick.
Tomoyo.
Yeah, Tomoyo.
And I remember seeing that as a kid and being like, oh, that's cool. And this I feel very fortunate for. But, like, I know other queer youngins don't always have, like, a good role model. I know as we get older, mercifully, that becomes not a thing, but I mean, I have gay uncles, so like that kind of helps a bit, so I did have some queer representation from small. But I remember little me being like, oh, cool, those girls are in love, like with that and like Sailor Moon and stuff, and I was like, that's cool. And that was like a whole thing, because you don't really see that, and I feel like anime went there, whereas most of our Western cartoons were just like, don't think about it too hard.
Well, it depends, because in the anime for the original series of Sailor Moon, they were cousin in English.
Yeah, but they didn't... Can we, like, take a stopgap here and just address how
They were not. Like, they were absolutely not, but...
They weren't.
They definitely were not, but the thing is, because they brought it over to Western media had to be like, we can't actually say that they are in a relationship because that is bad in big quotation marks.
It is forbidden.
Because forbidden. So we have to spin it in a way to explain why these two characters are so close to each other. They are cousins.
Well,
yeah, but it's like, isn't it grosser that way?
It's the same time period that they removed the butt crack in Dragon Ball.
Yeah, which was weird. They also removed that weird scene about Goku slapping Bulma in the genitals, which, like, fair.
Oh, Pa, you're a girl.
Which, fair, because that was just weird in general, but, like, some of the edits, and that's just such an interesting anime thing, like, I'm sure we all remember 4Kids, so you get those, like, One Piece and Yu-Gi-Oh! Timey things, where I remember specifically in Yu-Gi-Oh! There was this one point where Seto Kaiba, main antagonist, and my favorite Boo, was just writing something at his desk, and, come on, if he's not, like, King Slytherin energy, I don't know who is. He's Draco Malfoy if Draco Malfoy wasn't a bitch. Um,
Oh.
I do love Draco Malfoy dearly.
The Draco stands are gonna come after us.
I'm a Draco stan. I'm just saying. I love him despite.
The other Draco stands are gonna come after us.
I love him despite him being a little bitch. But I digress. Kaiba is just like doing something at his desk, and some guys come to forcibly take him. And of course, in the Regal version, they pull guns on him. But it's anime, so they can do that because, like, culturally there, all ages watch anime. But you bring it to the West, and then all these people didn't understand what anime was. We're like, oh, it's for kids. We can't show guns to kids. Not thinking that this is actually for all ages, so of course you can absolutely show that. And also, kids have things like Nerf guns and stuff. So I would argue that pretending that guns aren't real is actually a little bit more harmful than just, like, showing that that's a gun and showing that there are consequences. I feel like the other way kind of talks down to them. And I know we've touched on this in past episodes, but I really, personally despise things that talk down to children, because that is a terrible way to remove critical thinking from the youth. Like, in the 4Kids version, they edited it out, and it's just some guys pointing at him. And that's it! And then they're just like, oh, you're coming with us! And he's like, no. And it kills the moment, because in the original version, you have two guys with guns in his face, and he's like, no. And he just jumps out the window and does his own thing. But in the other one, they just point it at him real hard, and then he hops out the window. Makes him look like a psychopath rather than a badass. He just hops out the window of his building.
Actually, in relation to the 4Kids edit of Yu-Gi-Oh!, there was one scene where, I don't remember what the character's name is, it's been too long for me, but friend A of Yugi was supposed to find
Blonde
friend
one?
B of Yugi's.
Blonde friend of Yugi?
Friend A had brown hair.
Tristan? Who thinks Tristan is friend A? Poor Joey. All the Joey stands are... Oh my god, all the Joey stands are coming for you right now, Lynn.
Look, I didn't remember either of their names, okay? Calm down. So, Tristan was supposed to go get Joey, and in the original, they ended up in a fight, brawl. Eventually, I think Tristan knocked out Joey and just, like, carried him around to, like, get to wherever they were supposed to go.
That's on brand. That sounds correct.
But, in the 4Kids version, they didn't actually show the brawl. So we just saw Tristan going to look for Joey, and then eventually him just carrying Joey around.
Which is funnier, though.
That's kind of great.
It's funny, but at the same time, it doesn't give us the context as to, like, why Joey is suddenly unconscious and being carried around by Tristan. And I think during the fight, they were also exchanging a pretty intense conversation about something. You know how intense conversations in anime happen. But they didn't show that, and so we lost context for both what was being said between those two characters, and why is Joey suddenly unconscious, and how did Tristan even find him?
Yeah, but we were a kid at that point, so, like, you
but
put something from my 5 years old, look at something, it's like, going to this makes no sense to me. It's like, no, it makes sense. How? Show me.
It's just like the sanitization of the show again.
Yeah. No, it is true, but I actually think you guys are both on the money there. Like Sky said, it makes more sense to kids that way, and the way they were marketing it was towards children, even though it's clear this media was not intended to be marketed that way. And it's like Lynn was saying, that when you do shit like that, you lose the actual message of it. And then I know we've talked a bit about Death of the Author in the past on the show, and how it can be helpful. I think this is one of those times where you are really polluting the message by doing that. I think another good example of that in terms of anime is One Piece, because the 4Kids version of that and the Funimation version of that, I don't know if you guys are super familiar with that whole dual voice track thing. It's wild. To be extremely brief about it, the show One Piece, the anime, has 2 different English localizations. One done by Funimation Animation Studios, which do things like Dragon Ball Z and Attack on Titan and Full Metal Alchemist, a lot of the big faves, but that are slightly more adult. And then 4Kids obviously dealt with different things like Beyblade and Pokemon and Yu-Gi-Oh! And stuff like that, which was slightly skewed more towards younger audiences, regardless of what the source material was skewed towards. And there was a mess up with the rights, and both of these companies got the rights to do One Piece. Okay, not bad. However, One Piece as written definitely skews more adult. I understand that the powers and the costumes and all the nonsense, One Piece is bant as hell, but it is definitely supposed to be slightly more adult. And the 4Kids version does wild amounts of editing things, turning cigarettes into lollipops, fingers into guns, taking out a whole arc that was, I'm not gonna get into it, but it was a lot for the character of Nami. Just a lot of things got sanitized, and they also added all these wacky accents. Like when we were talking a bit in the bilingualism pod about characters with really poorly made localized accents, you get the character of Mihawk, who speaks with a really inaccurate French accent, which he obviously doesn't have, generally speaking. Like, the character isn't even intended to be that way. So it's interesting how, when we finally got anime in the West, the first thing Western media did was go, no, let's make this Western, and that kind of kills the whole vibe of what anime is and why it's different than conventional Western media.
Even manga and stuff like that. I read them in French.
Oh boy, that translation would have doubled the issue.
In the manga, they was saying lycée, and I was like, what the hell is a lycée?
Yes!
And how the grading worked. I was like, what the fuck is happening over here?
Okay, so for context...
This one's lost on me.
So for context, lycée is the equivalent of high school, but in France.
Okay.
Not in Quebec. Not in Canada.
Quebec. Not in Canada.
That would explain why I've never heard this word before.
Exactly.
I'm like, I speak French and I've never heard this word before.
Imagine me at like a 10-year-old reading a manga and being like, what the fuck is a lycée?
Yeah.
And then taking my dictionary from Quebec and looking for lycée and not finding what I wanted to look because I had an old ass dictionary.
That's also like...
That literally made me choke.
Legit though, because it's true, that weird sanitation that we tend to do of media here. I feel like culturally, obviously, depending on where you are, the way you intake that media is going to be entirely different. And I think the West has a terrible tendency of over-sanitizing random things, but then hyper-exaggerating violence and sexuality. And while I will never be on team tone down violence and sexuality, because I'm very much the opposite. Give me all the violence and sexuality. I don't fucking mind. Let's go. Like,
he says as a chaotic bisexual.
Yes. Chaotic bisexual that lives for horror movies. I'm all for it, but I think it's really weird that we're super okay with those things, and then we sanitize things that absolutely don't need it. I think that that's dangerous because it teaches people the world is a way it's definitely not. And that's problematic.
But there's the fact also that most of the anime that we're talking about right now, or that we're thinking of right now, were designed for the early 2000s to the mid 2000s.
That's true.
So our view of everything that is different is wrong. Not really, but that's what they thought at that point.
That's true. I guess that is something to think about, how when things came out really does affect how they happened.
Because we didn't have the same explanation just from the Sailor Moon, the original series, to the reboot series, where they're like, no, that character is actually androgynous. And yes, they are together, even though they're both more feminine now.
Which
like
also...
they attack the issue, but it's, 20 years difference between the two or more?
Like, and that's in the new Sailor Moon Crystal, right? Like,
yeah, exactly.
Yeah. And that is an excellent point, Sky, because when media comes out really has an effect on it, and when you look at already the lens of anime being culturally different, then you think about the times and how progressive things are, and you really do end up with quite a different final product than I think intended. That actually brings us weirdly back to, not to go the death of the author route, but how the fandom kind of fixes that up. Because I think as kids, or just as younger teens into our adulthood years, none of us ever watched Sailor Moon and were like, oh, those guys aren't gay. We're like, those are gays. Them's gays. We know they're gays. I don't care what you're saying to me. These gays. And that's how we were. So, like, I think it's interesting that the fandom adds in, again, all the blanks that the authors or that the meddling of studios kind of removes / omits.
It was already mentioned in the manga. I'm sorry.
Okay, true. It wasn't the manga. It wasn't the manga.
This isn't the manga. It's just that for people who didn't know the manga existed.
Yeah. But I mean, I do think that that is an interesting thing, though, about anime culture in general, is that while a lot of the animes we watch absolutely have accompanying manga that aren't necessarily the same, I think a lot of people interact with one or the other, and not always both.
Most people, what they do is they watch the anime to see if it's interesting to get into the manga, because the manga is 100 times longer than the
Either it's 100 times longer, or it hasn't finished yet.
Oh my god. Yeah. Looking at you, One Piece. Will you ever be done? Who knows? Who knows? It's 1,000 years long. I liked One Piece, but I'll never finish watching it because I don't have years of my life to devote to 900 plus episodes of content at 30 minutes a pop. Like, oh boy, I can't. I love you, One Piece, but we're gonna have to see other people.
That's why I go with the short series, like Yuri on Ice, or
I love Yuri on Ice. I actually wanted to bring it up earlier, but in regards to how when an anime is being released and in terms of how it's being represented, I think Yuri on Ice is actually an excellent example. Because you have to take in consideration that most animes are made in Japan, and so the culture there is very prevalent, obviously, in whatever content they make. And Japan's relationship with homosexuality or any LGBTQ in general is, well, I am not Japanese, so I don't know all the social context, but I do know that it is very complicated.
Yeah.
Because we do get a lot of content in which there are many characters that are queer coded or are either implicitly or explicitly stated to be in a queer relationship with other characters. But the actual culture in which LGBTQ relationships are held in the society are not that open. It is opening up now, to the best of my knowledge. But
if you look at My Hero Academia, now they have a character that's coming out as bisexual.
Yeah. So like the actual culture now is opening up, and I feel that Yuri on Ice was at the point where it was starting to become more normalized for queer characters to exist as the main focus, but also not as the only focus.
Yeah.
Because the relationship between Victor and Yuri was intended to be just a mentor-student relationship, but while the author was writing this, she was like, oh, they're falling in love. Okay.
And I think you actually touched on something really poignant there, because anime has created such an interesting safe space. Like, it has these subgenres for different queer interactions. And, like, yes, one could argue they're not perfect, but when you go to things like anime conventions and stuff, the heavy, safe vibe that there is, where you could just express yourself, live your best queer life, live your best non-queer life as well. Like, you could just be genuinely who you are. That environment exists because of the way anime is, that it's so open about these subjects, even when the places where it's airing and the places where it's coming from culturally haven't quite caught up to the media. So I think, interestingly, how we've spoken in the past about queer coding in Western media, there is obviously that problem of it always being quoted as a negative thing, but I think in Eastern media, at least in respect to anime, we often see it just casually thrown in there as normal and commonplace, and that representation, even if it was watered down or heavily, unfortunately, censored, for us as youths, we still felt that safety, and they gave us a place to connect and interact. And I think that's why places like conventions and stuff like that always feel so, like, homey and interesting. I know for years, personally, I cosplayed semi-professionally for years, and I would go to conventions every year. I still go to the local anime convention every year. I started going to Comic-Con a little more recently. Not that I always haven't wanted to go to Comic-Con, but I just prefer the environment of a talkathon. So I prefer the anime convention scene slightly more to the, I guess, nerdy comic book convention scene. Because even though, arguably, I'd say personally, I'm invested in a lot more series that would exist there, I think the energy is very different there.
Yes.
You get a very different flavor of energy, and I prefer the welcoming energy. And also, cosplay just as an art, I think that is one of the really beautiful things to have come out of the anime society culture at large, because what feels better than actually getting to inhabit, even briefly, the skin of a character who's helped you feel comfortable in your own skin? That's powerful. That's profound. Even when you're cosplaying non-anime characters. I mean, I don't know if y'all can tell, but I'm a bit of a fan of Spider-Man. And,
How could we guess?
you
We
know,
do wonder where that came up from.
like every other chaotic bisexual. The first time that I got to actually cosplay Spider-Man was long after, like, already cosplaying for years anime characters. And it gave me that confidence to finally, like, go and do that. And it felt so life-affirming. And it was a really cool, I guess, IRL experience versus, like, tangibility-wise. It felt so much more encompassing, I think, than a lot of other medias really give us the chance to interact with. Because while now it's becoming much more commonplace to cosplay non-anime characters, and it's leaked into, I mean, it's always been a thing in the comic book circles and sci-fi and stuff like that as well. But now it's becoming more prevalent. You see people doing Supernatural really catches our hands all the time. But it's like things like that, Supernatural, Riverdale, like more
Harry
modern.
Potter.
Even more modern than that. That's why I went like more recent,
okay.
like Riverdale, things like that, which one would argue are definitely not anime, are definitely not sci-fi, you know, are definitely not comic. Well, I guess not Riverdale, because technically Archie is comics. But like, yeah, I think even things like Riverdale and stuff, more modern things, and you see people cosplaying that nowadays, I think that just kind of gave us that window for self-expression and unity and a safe space to just be and enjoy the media that shaped us. Mm-hmm. And I think anime as a whole gave us that, you know?
Yeah, completely agree with that. Like, it was a refuge for the weird kid as well, because we had limited access to things that could help tickle our fancy.
True.
Like, you were either a sport person, or you were into cars, or like, I come from a small community, so like, it's all the cliches that you see in like American movies.
Oh my god, yeah, small town syndrome. Like, I also come from a small town, but you come from an even smaller town than from where I come from. And it is the small town stereotypes. They exist for a reason. It's that.
They exist for a reason.
It's really that. So when you're a
and
weird
having
kid,
that escape of having those anime or those things that is related to that culture was so accepting.
Mm-hmm. I think one of the big things, especially as millennials, like, we were a generation that was left very much to our own devices as the world changed around us.
Mm-hmm.
Yep.
So having something that felt comforting, that told you, yeah, you can go from Joe Nobody to being somebody, that friendships can last forever, that there is still magic and excitement and good things in the world, that there's possibility. That was huge and integral for us, and I think that that's why so many animes are still perseveringly huge parts of your, like, average millennial fan base, because we needed that. We've lived through so many intense world events, and we came into it as adults inheriting a very salted earth. So having something having something like anime gave us a safe space to really express ourselves and feel safe.
For me personally, getting into anime was also what led me to getting into a lot of video games, actually.
Ooh,
especially RPGs, where it kind of builds off of the animes themselves. Like, the general storylines were also fairly similar. Specifically for me, it was Final Fantasy X that like piqued my interest.
Final Fantasy
is an RPG.
JRPGs, man. Well, I mean, yeah, like, to be more,
a very special place in my heart.
yeah, to be more realistic, they're JRPGs rather than regular RPGs, because, like, God of War
Kind
is
of
RPG.
JRPGs.
It matters. It matters.
But one of the things that I very much liked about Final Fantasy X is the fact that the storyline, the way that, yes, there was battles, yes, there was like the world-saving thing, but the ultimate point of the story was the relationship between a father and a son. It was an exploration about how, especially for Japan, the idea of a son hating their father, or like having such ire for the previous generation, is not something that was allowed to be expressed.
Mm-hmm.
So, from someone from an East Asian descent, not that I hate my parents or anything, but the idea that you're going against the generation above you is, not something that we're supposed to
Mind-boggling.
do. Yeah,
Yeah.
it's mind-boggling. It's culturally not a thing we're supposed to do.
No, that's it.
So,
It's true though. It's also interesting. What people don't realize is you are getting these stories from the lens of people of color,
mhm.
and so many people are just in taking it and be like, "Oh, it's a bunch of white kids," but like it's not, you know. And
They are technically Japanese.
you're getting this story. Well, I mean, I guess that depends on setting, really. Like
Yeah.
you're getting this story from the lens of color creators. And that, in and of itself, is huge and big. And I don't think any of us really realize that as youth. Because we're just
No.
like, it's just anime. You know, you don't think about it that hard. But, like...
Or at least for me, it
except-
resonated enough because I am already East Asian. So
Mhm.
a lot of the things are similar enough.
That's
Except for when there's a color character, then you realize there's...
true. Ooh, yeah, then you... then you realize it. Because anime has not always historically been the best at doing that. Oh, boy. But, oof. Looking at you, Tenjo Tenj.
Yeah, that's right. That's what I was thinking.
But,
Looking at you, Dragon Ball.
yeah,
Ugh.
Mr. Popo was definitely a bad shout artistically. They made a bad decision.
Oh yeah, they made a bad decision. They were like, "Ooh, that's gonna be funny," and then they realized after what they have done and be like, "Whoops."
And now him and Jinx are awkwardly purple, and
Yep.
it's just weird now.
Yep.
It went from racist to fucking weird. Like there was no good sliding scale there.
They went from racist to Barney.
Yeah, like it was not great. It was.
Well, I mean, they started with racist to try and make it not as bad. They went with weird. So,
which like
is it better?
strong fucking maybe. Mr. Popo is the stuff of nightmare.
Yes, right.
I don't know if you guys have ever seen this. I know we've been talking a lot about Dragon Ball Z, but it is the granddaddy of, like, Western
Anime.
kids anime. So, but have you guys ever seen the YouTube series Dragon Ball Z Abridged?
No.
No, but I've heard about it.
So, it's an amazing thing. Go check it out. It is by a group called Team 4-Star. And Dragon Ball Z Abridged is essentially doing what Dragon Ball Z Kai did, except through the lens of humor. It's a lot more realistic. So I have like things like a Krillin kill count and just nonsense. Just pointing out all the funny memes of it. And one of the running memes in that show is how creepy fucking Mr. Popo is. Like, they just lean full into it. They're just like, this guy's creepy as shit, and we're just gonna lean into it. And it is really, really great. Also, it's a great example of another way that anime has kind of, the fandom has taken it over. Because you see with books and movies and stuff, fan fiction's like the big prevailing thing. But I feel like with anime, the big fan contribution tends to be AMVs, those anime music videos, or like animated shorts and stuff like that, like with Dragon Ball Z Abridged, redubbings and things like that. It's interesting to see how the different medium has a different fan base, like medium fan output.
Mm-hmm.
I find that the people that are a fan of the anime culture are more versatile in their way of loving than other media. Like, it's more out there. Like, it's cosplay, it's fan fiction, it's, in a sense, manga versus anime. It's kind of a fan fiction of a thing.
True. And the fan art is different. You have the
fan
AMVs, you have the meme videos, like all
the
that.
Dojin cheese.
Oh yeah. And like
I pronounced that wrong, I'm sure.
we never claimed to be able to pronounce a goddamn thing.
We cannot even speak in our own language.
Let alone other languages. Like if you
Fine,
hope for
Wilson.
eloquence, you're in the wrong place.
It is went.
But yeah, no, it's interesting to see how that different media has spawned a different fan reaction. That actually brings us back to our topic of talking about things in the fandom that really did cause us to react. Can you think of any of the animes or things like that that have caused you to feel like, hey, I want to get involved, I want to create something in this world, or I wish to go pursue more information about something in this world?
That is a good question.
Like, for me, to piggyback off Lynn's anime in video games, I'm not a big JRPG fan. I love anime, I watch a lot of animes, I've rattled off a few of some of my faves. Like, I'm not a weeb-y gamer. I'm much more invested in horror games and a lot more Western influence flavor video games, just in media in general, because JRPG as a gaming genre format, not super for me, with the exception of, I guess, Pokemon. But even then I fall in and out of, like, I love Pokemon as a series. I love that it was like one of the first video games to be an anime second rather than be anime or manga first and then a video game. I think that's pretty dope. And I love Pokemon, what millennial fucking doesn't. Pokemon Go has showed us that that's just a cultural phenomenon worldwide. But for me, with video games, JRPGs, not really a fan. However, there is a JRPG I do absolutely love, and that's Kingdom Hearts. I love it. I love it so goddamn much. I love Kingdom Hearts so goddamn much. And little me, teenage to young adult me was very, very invested in it, and a group of me and my friends got together and we started cosplaying as the different members of Organization 13. And that was like it was a big deal thing for us. Like, when you guys came over to my place, I'm sure you saw the 84 on my door. That's a direct reference to Kingdom Hearts. It's 8 and 4 being Axel and Vexen. Like, that is direct reference to that. But, like, it became such a huge part of my life that it got me cosplaying consistently with my friends and got more and more into it. And through that, I discovered more animes. Like, things like Naruto. I was very late to that party, because I didn't actually stay up to watch Bionics the full thing. I was like, another obscure Canadian YTV shout. I was like, Dragon Ball Z and Inuyasha done? Yes, I'm gone. Like, I don't care anymore.
Yeah.
Like, so I didn't really watch Naruto in its prime or Bleach or any of those things. I came to them way later than other people in my age group. But through cosplay, I found all these other really neat animes. Fate Stay Night, and Naruto, Bleach, all these things, which I wouldn't have encountered otherwise if I hadn't gotten deeper into cosplaying and things like this. And I think that it's interesting how fandom can feed right back into the source material and connect you back, not only with all these lovely people and experiences, but connect you right back to more media that you can connect with and learn, unlock more things about yourself.
Mm-hmm.
I think that's a power that not most genres of media have. Because a lot of people watch a movie and then that's it. You know, it's done. It's a nice little ride. It's an experience. It's whatever. Or you read a book. Maybe it's a part of a series. Maybe it's not. But it's isolated, you know?
Mm-hmm.
With this, it's a little more... maybe less with books, but this is a little bit more interconnected than some media is. And I think that that's a nice little unique little gem of a thing to do with anime.
You know, that actually makes me think, like, maybe that amount of influence as to how interconnected it can be did eventually influence Western media itself, because think of how involved, like, for example, this is a very recent one, but how involved The Witcher series is. It has
true.
like so many things involved with it. Yes, it started with the books, and then people made video games, and then they made a TV series, etc. But just in terms of the TV series, they get a lot of things involved in it, in terms of like they developed an app for you to keep up with the timeline, like as a partial, not as a joke, but like as a partial bonus thing, they had like the fireplace going on from Kaer Morhen as a, you know, as part of the winter fireplace thing. They just make it more and more immersive. So maybe on some level, just the way people get immersed into anime just started seeping in into how people get immersed into media in general. It was just an interesting point I thought of.
No, I think you're really onto something, because actually, to piggyback off that, I think it's anime, but not as direct as that. I think it's now, and again, this episode is just us showing our age like nobody's business, but I think it's that us as millennials grew up watching this stuff. It influenced our ability to connect with ourselves and our thoughts and how we interact with media, and then subsequently, we became adults and started making the media. Because while we might be on the younger end of millennials go up to 10 to 13 years older than we are, which means we're the adults now. We're making the TV. We're making the stuff. I mean, less us, because we are the younger side of that, but even with us, like, there are people in our age range that are doing that. So I think, like you said, anime has affected Western media because it affected the generation that's now in charge of making the Western media. So now we are adults, and we're like, hey, when we make the thing, I want the app. I want the books. I want the merch, the toys, the costumes, the figures, the everything. Because that's how anime works.
Also, they know that they can make so much money off millennial because we love our nostalgia moments.
Oh, we do. We are a big collector generation. But with that said, I think in terms of collection, we, my friends, have collected enough minutes in this episode that sadly we're going to have to bring it to a close. So, thank you for joining us today on our discussion of all the weeby loveliness that is anime and our obsessions with. And we will catch you guys next for a brand new episode of this messy mess creation of love.
Completely needlessly complicated chaos.
Needlessly complicated. So, needlessly complicated outro done. See you, gang. Bye-bye.
Bye.
Bye.
Needlessly Complicated Chaos is a TBP Creates production. Your hosts have been Ace Donnie Rivas, Lynn Tao, and Sky Bernier Dion. Thank you for listening. Howdy, y'all. If you want to join me, Sky, and Lynn for some wonderfully nerdy discussions, hit us up over on YouTube at Needlessly Complicated Chaos Podcast. Or, just want to listen to us banter? Check us out on your favorite podcatcher. Want to interact with us directly? Find us on Twitter or on Instagram. Or, I don't know, shout into the void. Maybe we'll hear ya. Find us wherever you find your podcasts.